And hello everybody, hashtag CJ McKay here, this Falter Roka D and Dragon Project. You might be able to tell by the scene behind me that there's a brawl coming. That's right, today it's droids versus clones in space. It's gonna be dogfights galore as we get right into some onslaught. There's gonna be a huge battle right now in a few minutes, but before I get into that, I'm just gonna do a quick recap for everyone who might have missed part 1 of this episode, where we saw the Battle of Majit and the death and betrayal of Ki-Adi-Mundi, who was gunned down and betrayed by the clone forces due to Order 66. We'll be talking lots more about that now in just a minute. Let's watch the last of this scene and get straight into the action afterwards, shall we?
As the Clone Wars progressed, more and more ground-based legions found themselves pressed into space combat, including the fighting forces of the 501st. For months, every hour of our downtime was spent in the simulator, preparing for the time we would face our enemies from the cockpit of a 170. Finally, the day came to earn our wings. The CIS had staged a daring kidnapping of Chancellor Palpatine and was being escorted from Coruscant by a fleet of separatist ships. With only a few veteran pilots on planet, many of the 501st were pressed into service to drive off the Seps and buy time for a pair of Jedi Knights to rescue the Chancellor. Pilots and Marines, get to your ships. The Jedi are depending on you.
And here we are now, everybody, into the second part of my first episode for my Star Wars Battlefront 2 series. For anyone who hasn't been watching so far, in the last episode we saw the death and portrayal of Ki-Adi-Mundi, one of my favourite characters from the early Star Wars movies, and he sat on the Jedi Council, felt very betrayed by Anakin Skywalker, if he did know it was Anakin who betrayed him in the end, because he had a close bond with him. He taught him a lot of what he knew and trained him in the Force. So I think that was definitely one of the sadder scenes from the prequels. Now, I'm just in a space flight now. The Jedi, I'm clearing space for the Jedi to come help Senator Palpatine, who's, you know, a Sith and evil. So we're really seeing into how the clones were used to kind of do a lot of the military functions, and that helped the Jedi be manipulated even further. The clones are kind of the focus of this game, as well as that Order 66 is one of the biggest focuses of this game, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, and which we saw a little bit of in the last episode. The clones within the Star Wars universe are kind of underplayed, in my opinion. One of the big things that really fascinates me about them is that they were cloned from Jango Fett, the father of Boba Fett, and he was a Mandalorian. And the Mandalorians are, for anyone who knows the expanded universe, kind of a lot of people's favourite creed or race, or whatever you want to call them. They're not exactly a race, they were kind of an army of people. They could be of any species, but Mandalore led them, and they were basically the biggest elite force of the galaxy and nearly destroyed the Empire. In that war, however, the Jedi Council refused to take part, and it's one of the biggest reasons they nearly won. And I think one of the biggest reasons that the Jedi Council finally took arms within the Clone Wars and actually fought alongside the clones was because the Mandalorians did nearly destroy the way of life for people, and led to a lot of Jedi falling into the Sith because they refused to not take part in the war. So that's covered a lot in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Yeah, so I think this game really reveals so much about the lore of Star Wars, and that's what I'm going to be talking about as a subject for this series. The Star Wars lore that's a little bit underplayed, in my own opinion. The clones, the droids, the Jedi that were on the Council who barely even get named in the movies. Most people knew Ki-Adi-Mundi as Big Head, which is accurate. He had a binary brain, something like that. I can't really, I'm pretty sure it's binary brain. He had 2 brains in one head, and made him super smart and good at the Force. Ki-Adi-Mundi was actually from the planet Serena, I think, or Ceneria. It's written on screen because I'm bad. at pronouncing things. But yeah, he was from like basically a planet that's completely isolated from the rest of the galaxy, and he was one of the only Force users from his planet. From a really early age, his Force powers came in strong, and he made his way up to the Jedi Council, one of the only member of his species to ever be on the Jedi Council. So it was a big deal. Oh, okay, just destroying a few turrets and stuff like that. Oh crap, incoming missile. Now I can do space tricks to avoid missiles. Yes, it worked. It lost tracking. So yeah, what I'm going to be doing in this series is talking about kind of some of the unsung heroes of the movie, some of the Jedis who got whacked in Order 66. What Order 66 was essentially, and this is what this game covers more than anything, is not just the Clone Wars and the crushing of the droids, but Order 66. Order 66 was when Senator Palpatine essentially had the clones wipe out the entire Jedi Council, bar Yoda, in one swift move. He basically said, execute Order 66, and that was it for the Jedi Council, basically. They all got wiped out in one scene of the movie, and it was pretty horrible. It's also the same scene that Anakin kills all those kids. It's kind of horrible. That's when Anakin's really lost himself to the dark side, and he's Vader then. Oh no, overheat. I thought I had another incoming missile. Gonna... Yeah, taking down their communication array. See, this is one thing I really do love about this game, is aside from covering Order 66 and covering the Clone Wars, it covers the droids and what happened to them, because the droids got barely, they were such a huge threat in the first movie, and they were kind of in the next movies. I mean, they were blatantly in the 2 and 3, but like, they weren't this really, it wasn't the focus of the movie anymore, for one. And so I'm kind of glad it wasn't, but at the same time, I do think a giant army of robots really should have been cooler and displayed more, epically within the movies. Cause, I mean, I hated the droids in the movies. That whole Roger Roger thing. They were just kind of, they were a parody of themselves, and for me, they kind of were what emulated and really showed off what was bad about the later movies, and that they forgot what the earlier movies soared on. The faceless army of drones that were jackbooted stormtroopers were intimidating, and they said a couple of lines, and they weren't formulaic. They were actually iconic. Whereas the droids annoyed me, and in this game, one of the big reasons I like the droids' presence in these games is because you get to kill them. You get to just blow up a ton of droids, and they're kind of annoying. And as well as that, the force of a giant army of robots should be apparent, and this movie makes it so. So I'm gonna... Yeah, see, I hear that Roger Roger crap pisses me off so much. Now, I just got blown up in their docking bay again. God damn it. So I'm going to try actually successfully land. I did it! I actually landed on the ship. It's time to go blow up their internal crap. Oh god, you leave me alone. No. Oh, droids everywhere. Oh dear. Okay, back into the first person shooter mode. No more space flights for now. Let's just run past these guys and try blow everything up. Oh my god, there's a lot of them. There is a hell of a lot of them. Oh, they're in here too. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Oh, they're spawning in here. They're spawning in here. Just throw grenades. Just throw them and hope for the best. Oh, killed myself. Damn it. Oh, I'm back onto their ship and back into the action. Howdy hey, everybody. So, I'm going to be wrapping up this episode fairly shortly, but I wanted to do this two-part episode to really sum up what this series is going to be like here on the channel. It's going to be a lot of me talking about the Star Wars lore, a lot of killing droids, a few Jedi deaths, a lot of Sith, kicking ass and taking names, and probably a few clips of Star Wars, and maybe even big snippets from the comics thrown in to highlight what I'm talking about in terms of the lore. As well as that, I'm going to be talking about the things I absolutely hate about Star Wars. There are a lot of things I hate about the prequels mainly. I kind of have I have no problems with the earlier movies, other than maybe the retconning that happened, and that stuff I'm going to be talking about as well in this series, and then my Star Wars series here and the Dragon projects in general. I plan on doing tons and tons and tons of Star Wars series here in the channel, starting with this game and moving on to maybe the sequel to this, or Knights of the Old Republic, or I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'll figure that out when I get there.
Grab a fighter and destroy the bridge of the enemy.
Okay, now we're on to destroying the bridge. I cannot wait. I have to get back into a ship now, but I think I'm not going to pick up my ship in the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the droid ships, because that would be fun. Look at that thing, that looks awesome. Oh no, he got it. Damn you, you died. If I can just kill this guy before he makes it to his ship. You get away. Is that one? No! Goddamn robots faster than me. Yeah, so like I said, this series is going to be talking a lot about the Star Wars lore. I'm going to be talking about the Mandalorians, the Sith species, the Jedi Council, and the things I hate and the things I love, and the things I love to hate and hate to love about Star Wars. I'm going to be talking about the deep lore that most people don't know about, or that only the hardcore fans know about, and I'm going to be talking about the mainstream crap that everybody knows. So yeah, it's going to be an all-encompassing Star Wars extravaganza here for this series. Mainly focusing around Order 66 from the movie, as well as that, the Clone Wars and the droid armies. Now that's me hitting victory now, which I'm very happy to be doing, so I'm simply going to say thank you everybody for dropping by to this series, and I really hope you have all enjoyed it. I really am enjoying doing this series so far, and slán go fóill, and may the Force be with you.
After disabling the final capital ship, General Kenobi and Skywalker took advantage of the opportunity we'd created and rescued the Chancellor. Took all the credit, too.